Okay, recording is on. Welcome.
Hello.
Me again, and this dude again, and these guys, you know them already. So welcome, Paul. Welcome, Francesco, and welcome, Franito.
Francesquito.
So today we don't have any specific written agenda because at the end it's a meeting for you, not for me and Fran to tube out our voices. But I can just quickly share you because I think it's interesting to share those most important things that are happening at the moment in the initiative. So let me just get the link. I want to share you with you an update on the Parser development and where we are if it comes to 1.0 release. Let me. Where's the share button? Can you see GitHub?
Yes.
Yeah, so the good news is that we are, I think it's pretty close to 1.0 release because the 5 issues that we have here, they are all actually all of them have APR opened already, because also one guy from the community joined the efforts and created already 2 PRs yesterday for those 2 issues. So it's pretty looking pretty good. Hopefully next week something will go out, maybe first release candidate. So that's if it comes to the development. So that's the main focus, parser, and then of course using the latest 1.0 parser in generator, and then release 1.0 of the generator. So that's it if it comes to community tools for AsyncAPI. And the other one is the website that it's almost merged. So the new website that Fran is working on, but we also wrote about it on Twitter. So you should be aware of what it's the work on at the moment. And
I can share the website maybe.
Sure. I just wanted to share if someone didn't notice. If you don't know yet, I hope you know that every 2 weeks, since a few months, we are releasing a newsletter about what's happening in AsyncAPI. But to get a wider audience, not everyone likes to read emails. Now we will also release the same as a blog post. And last week was the first time we did it. So it's so this blog post also contains the updates on what we're working on currently, if it comes to the core team. So just to let you know, if you don't like to subscribe with your email to newsletter, we made a step for you forward to give you the same content in the blog post as well.
Yeah, so the whole point here, I think, is to reach a wider audience. We don't want to collect emails just for the sake of collecting emails, right? We want people to subscribe to the newsletter so they don't have to remind to come and check every time, right? About the new information, right? And not everybody's using an RSS tool, right? So that's why we started the newsletter. And but yeah, like Łukasz said, if you don't want to subscribe for whatever reason, you don't want to get too much noise on your email, not because we're making too much noise, but yeah, our newsletter, other people's newsletter, you know, sometimes it becomes too noisy. So if you prefer other ways, yeah, you can just read it here in the blog. And on the new website, we will have RSS for the blog, so it will be possible for you to add our blog to your favorite feed reader or RSS reader, so you don't have to So you get notifications as well, right?
And we also always share new content on Twitter, on LinkedIn. So
yeah. So
if you don't miss it.
So the whole point here is that we reach a wider audience, and independently if we know their emails or not. So yeah, and also as a reminder that the blog is open for anyone in the community to publish. So yeah, posts are welcome, more than welcome. So it's your space to actually to write whatever you think could be interesting for the audience. So yeah, actually, I was right now replying to some blog post proposals. Not that I'm saying. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's it from my side. So if you, Fran, want to show the website?
Well, let me just share the website. It's gonna be easier. I was going to ask, but this is being recorded, and some people will watch the recording. So, I have to claim host. Okay. Let me try to find it. It's here. No, it's here. Okay. Yeah. So can you all see my screen? Yeah.
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the new website. The idea was to make an easy way for people to understand what we're talking about, right? Because not everybody's familiar with specs, and not everybody's familiar with event-driven architectures. So first thing we thought is, let's do a demo here, right on your face. Whenever you enter the website, you get a demo there, and you see a demo on the left side, like you're typing the AsyncAPI document, and on the right side you see it, the documentation, like it's a fake documentation. It's not like the one you see in the generator, but it's a way to explain what it is, right? It then points you to open this example on the left side on AsyncAPI Hub. Not yet done, by the way, but that's the idea. So this is the usual for the newsletter sponsors. We wanted to make the community channels or the communication channels more visible. So we added this on the homepage as well. Like you can join Slack and join the public meetings, like these public meetings, right? So yeah, and as you can see, we have Łukasz, as usual, saying good morning on the channel, right? And all the reactions, and Jonas Lagoni reacting with a sleeping parrot here. So yeah, it's actually very accurate of what's happening every day, almost every day. And yeah, so as I was saying, all the buttons here to add to add a reminder or a Google an event to your Google Calendar, or join the mailing list, or or the channel, the YouTube channel, for watching the recordings of these meetings today, and the upcoming ones, right? This should be this will be accurate. So this is being calculated all the time. So far is a calculation. As you can see, this is 6 p.m. Next one is 6 p.m. right? And on my time zone, and which is CEST, right? Central Europe summertime. And the next one will be at the same time as today, right? So it's 10 a.m. So yeah, this is generated on the fly. every time you visit the website. We wanted to tell that this is not a crazy idea by a few guys, which is also the case, but not just that. So yeah, we wanted to show the world that some companies are already using AsyncAPI. At some point, we will link these logos to specific use cases or let's say demonstrations that these companies are using AsyncAPI. But yeah, in the beginning, it's going to be just logos, I guess, in the meantime, right? But it will be cool that more companies contact us like, hey, we are using AsyncAPI, we want to be there on this logo cloud, right? So as you can see, there's a link here, and you can let us know here. This will create an issue on the website repo, and there you can explain like, hey, so my company is company X, and we want to get listed there, and this is how we're using AsyncAPI. So yeah, and to continue with the previous website, we have some quotes here from different people, some testimonials, right? And the latest from our blog. So yeah, that's the main. This is the main homepage. I'm still working on that. Might change, but I don't think it's going to change so much. The main the homepage. And what's being improved as well is the navigation. So you can see that getting started tutorials, specification, and we added a new section which is called use cases. This is pretty much related to what I was talking before about these logos, and we would love to have more real use cases of companies and people using AsyncAPI on their companies, and just to show people what could you be using AsyncAPI for, so people get a grasp of what it is, right? And again, this is not done yet, but yeah, let's go into the documentation, for instance. So documentation, in my opinion, this has gotten an upgrade. Only just in the appearance itself is much easier to read now. So the content width is now fixed, and like GitHub does, for instance. And you have a table of content that I cannot see because I have your faces here. Let me move this out. Okay. So yeah, you see you can see the table of content, but in this case, there's only one section, so there's no that's a bad example to showcase. But as you can see, you have in this case, you can have the table of content here, the navigation on the right side. Let me just show you. So also the specification. So specification is now much easier to navigate, right? Before it was a pain because the table of content was on the top of the document, and you were always like trying to remember maybe like what was the name of this. I don't remember. It happened to me, and I've written the specifications. So yeah, so I can't imagine people trying to find some things, right? So in case you're reading in the middle of somewhere in the spec, right? Like, I don't know, you're here and you want to go to a server object, you just click here and that's it, right? So that's, to me, that's, I mean, I don't have to explain the table of content value, right? But I think it's really valuable, and thanks, Łukasz, for suggesting this because it's really valuable. And I think the next step, maybe, or next iteration will be adding search to the whole, not just to this page, but to the whole website, right? To the whole documentation specifically. Maybe including also blog posts. So So it's easier to find content, basically.
Is it live yet?
It is, but it's a URL, it's a deploy preview. You can, let me share it here in the, yes. How do I send? Let me find the chat. Well, this is pointing to server object, but yeah, you get it. So it's there, it's live, and it's a pull request preview. I don't know if I change tab, you see it change it, right? You see the tab now on the you see the GitHub pull request?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's this pull request, actually. It's a preview of this pull request. So as I keep working on this pull request, you will see update in this same URL. The URL will not change. So yeah, that's super useful. That's thanks to Netlify deploy preview. And yeah, let me just.
Where is the documentation hosted? In the same website repo, or it's in a different place and you fetch it?
The documentation is on the same repo.
Okay.
But we plan to do some integrations, not in the first iteration, but between the repos, like whenever. So for instance, we have here, let me find it. Okay, so for instance, the specification, right? So connecting the AsyncAPI repo with the website, right? Let me turn it off. It's okay. Connecting the AsyncAPI repo with the website. So whenever someone changes something on the repo, on the specification, right, it gets somehow pushed to the website. It might be push, or it might be the other way around. It might be fetched from the other side, but yeah, synchronize, let's say. So we don't have to store the specification in two places, right? And we don't have to maintain it in two places. And also, at some point, we plan to add to this documentation the docs for the parsers, for the generator, for all the tools, right? And do the same thing, do the same integration, like we synchronize all the information, right? So it ends up in the same.
A while ago, you mentioned that there was an effort going on to improve the documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still needed, or it's done? I have been out of the community for a few weeks now.
Oh no, actually, this is not part of this effort to improve the documentation. This initially was just a way to rewrite, to move from Hugo to Next.js, so different framework. And I just took the opportunity to redesign this a little bit, but and there are some improvements, but yeah. So now we will have to sit together and think about how to improve the documentation and how to actually improve the whole website experience as well, right? So people learn, it's easier for people to learn faster about the spec and get more tutorials, and yeah. So this needs to be done yet. This is just a small improvement that I did while I was migrating, but not really the purpose of this pull request.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay, so generator finally got its place on the website. Right, so it has a landing page for itself. And I think this is cool. This is something you can interact with and play with it. Like I want to generate code on Node.js, Java Spring Boot using Docker. You can copy it here. So yeah. And by the way, this is embeddable on the documentation. So this is ready to be embedded on the documentation whenever we want. So that's going to be useful. GitHub Actions, something. Well, you get it, right? So it's like, it's just a new website. I think it's looking much better now, I think. Also, one of the key things we did here is there is now a single drop down, let's say, if you want, for community resources, right? So we we have some tools here, but we also want to feature some tools from the community, right? Like we've been doing till now. Like this is nothing else than what we already have. The list of tools that people have contributed to work with AsyncAPI. Not necessarily the tools that we maintain, but yeah, people that tools that people contributed, and not just tools, like services as well. Like for instance, BAMP. You have BAMP here, and it says software as a service, right? So yeah, same thing. More visibility again to the GitHub organization, the Slack workspace, the blog. Łukasz will be happy to. I mean, look at this. I'm gonna refresh. It's done. Right. If you go to the current blog, it takes ages to load. Right. It's super slow, and not to mention in mobile. So yeah, now it's
not now. When I compressed all the images, now it's also almost super
it's
fast.
it's still slow, but yeah, it's definitely much better than before. The images were taking a lot of time. So yeah, and yeah, so again, blog posts are markdown, and you can find all this content on the website repo inside the AsyncAPI organization. So feel free to open an issue saying like, hey, I want to write a blog post about this or that, and then open a pull request, and it will be published. So yeah, and the shop, but the shop, yeah. This is only for swag. I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, I think you already. Oh my, these socks. I love them. So yeah. So that's what I'm working on. Next thing, and one thing that I didn't mention on purpose till now, is the hub. So the hub is actually, I'm now working on this. Let me just change the screen that I'm sharing. I think it's this one. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see my screen, right? So I'm working on the AsyncAPI hub documentation, the basic one, right? And the idea is that we get the basic documentation explaining how to contribute to AsyncAPI hub, and before we open source it, right? So I'm actually doing this now to open source something that is really meaningful and easy for people to start contributing to, right? And as we promised, AsyncAPI hub is going to be open source, even though we will probably run a server as a service, software as a service instance, right, online. But yeah, it's open source, and anybody will be able to install it in their systems, and without having to need anything from us. And also, this is something that I want to document as well, like how to install it in your own computer, on your own server, and over time, I hope people help us to document how to deploy AsyncAPI hub to AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, blah blah blah, right? So that will be great if we could also automate somehow, maybe with Terraform or something like this. I don't know. So people can actually deploy this in their favorite place, right? So yeah, so that's pretty much this from my. That's pretty much it from my side.
What is the advantage of deploying the hub by yourself?
The advantage of deploying the hub by yourself, it's that you get all the data in your own systems. Like some people are not happy about getting their private information in other companies' servers, right? And and for instance, in this case, the AsyncAPI Hub is just a place where you can edit your files and store them, right? But the idea is to keep improving it as a way to store your developer portals as well. So you can have developer portals, internal or external developer portals, right? So you can share the documentation with your team or with your partners or with the public audience. And then also over time, the idea is to get into API management, right? And to get into this area of handling, let's say, having like if you want like an API gateway, think about an API gateway for events that you can deploy on your servers and that will connect to AsyncAPI Hub. And yeah, so you don't want your events to be flowing around the internet, right? Because your events might contain sensitive information, and yeah, you might want to have it on your own servers.
Okay, thank you.
That could be a reason, no problem. And also, yeah, we're still not clear that we'll run this software as a service, because that's a lot of work. That sounds more like building a company, right? So yeah, and we want to keep this. This is a community effort, and think about it like Redis, if you want. Like now that Salvatore stepped back, it came to my mind like you can think about it like Redis or like Elasticsearch or all these projects. You install it in your servers. You have Redis Labs, you have Elasticsearch itself selling the services as well. But yeah, I don't think in my whole life I've ever used their online services, their cloud services. I was always installing it myself in my servers. So this should be more or less the same, hopefully. Does it make sense?
It does.
Oh, so we have Mohammed waiting to join. Sorry, Mohammed, I hope you were not waiting for too long. I just saw that you wanted to join. So that's it from my side. Like this is pretty much what we're doing now. We're working on the new website and the hub at the same time, so we can open source it, and we can have the new website to point to AsyncAPI Hub. But yeah, for that we need to have AsyncAPI Hub in shape first, and public as well, because it's not yet public. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm doing there. Hopefully, as Łukasz said, we soon will have the parser, the first parser, the first stable release of the parser, and also the generator. And yeah, that will be fun to start building new tools on top of it.
Or do 2.0 releases of those.
Yeah, or start breaking, but and bumping the version. So anything you want to share?
Yeah, a couple of things from me. So MuleSoft are getting their value for money for sponsoring the conference, and they made me write a blog post, which will go up on the MuleSoft website this week. So you'll obviously it describes the community and what I presented. So we'll see if we can also, if you want it, post it on the Async blog. That's one thing. Two, thank you for the swag as well. Swag arrived this week. I have a T-shirt somewhere as well, so I should wear it next time there's a conversation. So that's good. And thirdly, I know we had some conversations around extensions, and you were thinking about what you were going to do moving forward. So I didn't really want to touch on extensions, but it's more, are there any areas that you think I could help you? Obviously, I can help with documentation or tutorials. I'm not going to learn JavaScript, so I don't even go there with that. So, but any areas where you think you need some assistance, and if I've got any skills to help, I'm happy to. So
I think
some guidance.
I think tutorials is a very desertic area right now. Like we only have one tutorial and the same tutorial in another version, in an interactive version. So it will be great to have, like, even if it's, you know, like faking a real use case, and or could be potential real use case, it would be great to have some tutorials, or I think tutorials will be great, explaining. I don't know, it comes always to my mind, like explaining, I don't know, demonstrating how you could build microservices to communicate between each other. I already did with Streetlights this Internet of Things thing, right? But yeah, it's not so much Internet of Things because it's only using MQTT, but it will be great to have something, I don't know, like if you have more knowledge about C++ or Java or something like this, it will be great to show how you can generate code in these other languages. And yeah, probably by doing that, you probably will have to use one of the existing code generators, or create a new one, or improve them, or if something is missing. So yeah, I think that's a pretty much needed area. And also the spec. So the spec needs some love, basically. For there are some areas of the spec that need improvement. Those that come to my mind are always that this dichotomy of publish and subscribe. Like some people get confused about the meaning of publish and subscribe, and how we can solve this without like, I don't know, or for version 3, how can we solve this on version 3 of the spec? And probably, to me, this is like this issue is actually like it's a smell of an underlying bad design on the spec. You know, like there's something bad on the spec that is making this issue pop out, right? And it's a code smell to me. So probably, and I think I more already have an idea on what it can be, but yeah, someday I'll explain what are my ideas on this area. But yeah, that will be one great thing, like adding ideas on how we can get rid of this problem once and for all. And also, there are people suggesting that we should probably have another verbs, like unsubscribe, like a like request, like reply, how to make all this request reply over messaging systems be defined on AsyncAPI, so we can actually know that this information coming through this channel is actually the reply of this other coming from this other channel. Because yeah, there are many people doing these request reply systems on over messaging. So that will be interesting. And
that's enough ideas, Fran. That's enough ideas, Fran. I'm not. Actually,
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say I might start with a tutorial because I have some use cases in public sector around how you tell government something's happened, and this is a perennial thing, right? Is they have no way of describing it, so everything gets custom built the whole time. So maybe I'll find a use case around there and then generate a tutorial and take it from there.
Yeah, that will be a great use case because a great example of tutorial, because I don't think any of us could actually write something like this because we don't have the experience in that area. So that will be great contribution.
And I think the easiest would be because there's just one tutorial, like Fran said, and there's no. I mean, we still have a backlog issue to think about information architecture for the docs. So if you would have, like, it would be difficult for you to fit your content into current structure. Just forget about docs. Just think about blog only. So your tutorial can still be a blog post. So, and I think it would be even the best, because for you would not have to focus on the docs. You would be free from the limitations or whatever we have in the docs, and you would just focus on writing a good blog post that would be published in AsyncAPI blog. That in future, once we streamline the focus, develop the focus on documentation, we can take your content and fit into a new docs that we will create.
Even a Google Docs, I would say, like initially this could be a Google Docs or something. Some place where we can quickly collaborate. And I mean, Google Docs, I don't like Google Docs because, you have to be sharing the link and there's no visibility. It's always preferable. A pull request, it has more visibility, right? But yeah, whatever works for you to draft the content and put in some ideas there, like here we should have something interactive or whatever, and then we'll make it happen, like Łukasz said, on the next whenever we have the next website and we move the focus into improving the documentation. If you had a comment there like we should have an interactive widget here doing blah 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 whatever, or whatever other things, we will make this interactive content. And yeah, we will adapt it, let's say.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to have to run because I'm late for dinner, so I'm in trouble. But nice to see you guys.
Thanks, Paul.
See you again soon.
Have a good day.
See you. Fran, Luca, do we have a schema defining the spec? So I'm a super visual person, and if I don't see something, it will be super hard for me to remember it. And I couldn't find it when I was looking for it.
A schema you mean of the whole initiative, like with all the tools, like a diagram, you mean?
Just for the spec.
Just for the spec.
JSON schema, I mean.
You mean JSON schema or a diagram?
A diagram.
Okay, no, so I don't think there's a diagram for the whole spec.
For the specification itself, no.
No.
Do you think it would be useful?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But maybe there are some tools to generate diagram from JSON schema.
From JSON schema, we have a JSON schema file.
Yeah.
But and maybe we can generate the diagram from there, or at least a starting point.
If you think that it's useful, I can give it a try.
Actually, I think it's useful, and I think it will be even more useful to have, like what Łukasz said, is to have something to generate it, because then it will be automatically generated on future versions, right? So we don't have to constantly be maintaining it, right? So this actually could be a really cool. This could be a really cool use case for the generator, actually. If you think about it, so the generator can output anything, right? So you get the AsyncAPI file as an input, and you can output whatever you want. the thing here is that you should probably use an AsyncAPI file that has all the features, right? Which I think we already have, which is a dummy, this dummy AsyncAPI file. And from there you can probably, I don't know, generate all the parts of the spec and how they connect with each other.
But you're thinking about visualizing a AsyncAPI document that someone creates, or visualizing the structure of the AsyncAPI document that you should create based on the schema?
Visualizing the spec itself. So
okay.
I have a server. The server is definitely linked with multiple things. And if I go through the documentation, I will easily find them. But probably upon doing that, I will build a diagram on my sketchbook to see how those things are related to each other.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something like Łukasz said, maybe there's something to create diagrams out of a JSON schema. And we already have this, spec defined as JSON schema. And I don't know if you know what it is.
Maybe.
It's on the AsyncAPI repo. So along with the spec version, you have a JSON file, a JSON schema file, which is not completely accurate, like in detail, but yeah, for a schemas would be more than enough for a diagram. Yeah. So let me share the link here. There you go. We're actually using these schemas for validation. So the parser uses them as a way to do the first validation step, let's say, right? That's one of the steps of validation.
Okay. So the schema must be accurate then.
Exactly.
Otherwise the validation will not pass.
Exactly. So we are, it's not 100% accurate, because then we do more additional steps, like like validating the messages can payload. The messages payload can be JSON schema, can be RAML, can be OpenAPI schemas. Ideally, it could be Avro whenever the tooling supports it, right? It can be many things, not just JSON schema, right? So yeah, this cannot be validated with JSON schema. And that's why we need the second step of going through all the message payloads and understanding which schema language this is written on, and applying the correct schema validator to these message payloads. Okay. And also, actually, Łukasz is working on that right now, and adding additional validations, like for instance, a security scheme. All security schemes must be defined, they have a name, right? And they must be defined under components and referenced from servers. So we're going to be checking if the name of the security scheme that you are referencing on the server actually exists on the components section. Because right now this is not being checked with the JSON schema definition. So there are, and there are others, like validating that all the parameters that you are passing on the channel name are actually defined. And you're not defining any other names, or you're not missing one of them. This is not being validated by the JSON schema definition yet.
Okay.
But these are, as you can see, these are like little details that will not affect any diagram generation, right? So yeah.
And if I try to do something, it should be based on JavaScript. Is it correct?
Not necessarily. I mean, you can do whatever you think it's best suitable for you. If you do it in JavaScript, you'll get the JavaScript parser, right? In case you need it, but you might not need it. you might only need the JSON schema parser. And for that, you have it in many languages.
Okay.
Of course, the nicest would be the 3.js and
that's what I was.
Dynamic generation in the UI, of course. But
Yeah.
at the end, it's the most important is to display the diagram. It can also be PNG that is generated with whatever tool you use.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Actually, it could be useful that we create something. That it's easy to output as an image, as a PNG or JPG.
Actually, SVG would be best.
And or whatever other kind of image, right? And also as a live thing on a website, right, where that you can actually visualize and dynamically. And why not? Maybe interact with it.
Okay. I'll give it a try and show you something if I can reach a point that is reasonable to be shown, and we can start from there.
That would be great, man. So if you need some help, just let us know.
Okay, I will let you know. Do you want me to create an issue, or I can just start on it?
What's your preference?
Okay, I'll give it a try and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So, Łukasz.
Anything else? So from my side, nothing else. Francesco, do you have something?
That's it. Actually, I'm gonna go as well.
Okay.
Then I'm going to.
I'm gonna stay alone here for a while.
Bye, Stanita.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye bye.